science when it talks about structural development of any part of the body, like let's say muscular development. It's the scientific term is hypertrophy. So hypertrophy happens when you create tension in the muscle for a particular amount of time, which is known as time under tension. And when you repeat that, so those are the basic scientific principles. And apart from that, there is something known as isolation, isolation of the muscle. So you can I think the tantric methods, the tantric practices, the tantra yoga practices are the most efficient ways of isolating the spine muscles. Like for example, when you want to develop the bicep muscle, instead of doing just a bicep curl, you would do something like a preacher curl, where you rest the elbow on an inclined surface and then do the bicep curl, which will specifically isolate, like it will isolate the bicep muscle even more efficiently when you do. So similarly, this is the same concept for hypertrophy of the muscles of the spine. You want to isolate the muscles of the spine.
Mm.
Apart from time retention and repetition, the third important scientific principle, based on pure rationality and reason, is isolation of the spine. And I think uh, Tantra Yoga actually isolates the spine in the most efficient way compared to other systems of yoga, also, not just other physical cultures, but yoga also. Other systems, compared to other systems of yoga, also, it is the most efficient way of isolating the muscles of the spine. The thing is, you can actually develop the musculature of the spine through other physical activities too. It's not like, for example, when you do core workouts like planks and all, you have all these different
Mm.
physical cultures. Even strength training, when you lift weights while keeping the spine engaged, you can actually develop the spine muscles through that also, through weight lifting also. It's just that there is no isolation of the muscle. So, like I said, the third principle, which is isolation, that doesn't happen in other cultures of other physical cultures. Like, for example, if I do plank, I'm also engaging my inner abdominal wall, I'm engaging my hip flexor, I'm engaging my glutes, I'm engaging my spine also. I'm working on spine muscles also, but my serratus anterior, my rib cage muscles are also getting engaged. My lats are getting engaged. So along with the spine muscles, other muscles are also getting engaged when you do other physical practices. But if you like you have been practicing, so you know this. When you look at the tantric practices, they will relax everything else. The legs are relaxed, for example. Everything else is relaxed. It's just the spine, and that way it is keeping this. We are keeping it perfectly vertical. So the muscles that are needed to keep the spine vertical for a very long time, those are also getting engaged. So you're literally not just isolating the muscles of the spine, but you're also working on the functionality of it. And functionality of the spine is to be vertical, so that you can sit, stand, walk, and do your work very efficiently with this. So you can imagine. So yoga actually offers probably the most efficient way of isolating the muscle, and that
Yes.
is only at the musculoskeletal level. That
Mm.
structure of the spine. At the physiological level, there is again more effects, like more things happening. Like for example, we
Yeah.
put pressure on the pressure points of the foot and the hands, and
Right.
the way we put pressure on the pressure points of the foot, it is according to the natural bipedal design of the lower body and the natural opposable thumb design of the upper body. So that is how we are putting
Mm.
pressure. So that affects not just the outer musculoskeletal structure, it's also affecting the glandular structure, and it's also affecting the plexi, the nerve plexi. So
Right.
by that process, you're also affecting the mind.
I wanted to ask why muscle isolation and why not compound exercises?
So yoga is compound also, right? When we do other practices in yoga, it's compound also. Like for example, when we do the chair posture, it's working on the legs also, spine also. It's very compound actually.
I was wondering about this because, if you go back in time and when we were, hunter gatherers, so at that time we didn't use our muscles in isolation. वो काफी compound activity होता था. Like we
Almost
would
all
go
activities are
running.
compound activities. We
So
isolate
then,
we isolate for development.
like you spoke about bipedal design, that's working for the human, but isolating the muscle, I don't understand why isolating the muscles is
For,
better than compound exercise.
so for hypertrophy of the muscle, like if you really want to, and for specific muscle development, and why specific muscle development? Actually, this is a very good question. Yeah, good that you asked this question. So, like if you look at in today's modern world, if you look at fitness influencers, people who talk about fitness, talk about health in general, so they will, so it can be gymming, it can be yoga, it can be Pilates, or it can be any other physical activity. The people who are like influencing others, they will look very fit, they will look very good, and they will have their progress also. Like if you look at their Instagram stories, they will have this entire timeline of how they developed their bodies. And if you really observe the ones who are really famous, the ones who are very influential on social media, if you just observe their bodies, definitely they have developed their arms, their chest. If you look at their before and after photos, you can definitely see a distinct improvement in their arms, shoulders, chest muscles, abs, leg muscles. But if you notice the ones who are like really influential, and it's not their fault also, it's basically people don't have the proper right education regarding this topic. So basically, if you look at their spine structure, just observe, even the ones who are like really top at the top level, observe the spine structure, there won't be much difference. Why? Because they were naturally gifted, because of genetics or whatever. Their spine structure is really beautiful. So what do I mean by spine structure? Like in general, like it's not a perfect categorization, but in general, on the basis of, let's say, genetics, very crude division of physical structures, there is this mesomorphic structure, ectomorphic structure, endomorphic structure, which in Indian Ayurvedic culture also we have the corresponding names like Vat, Kaph, Pitta. So this, even though it's not a watertight compartment, it's not a watertight category, but like normally people are a combination of two or three things. So if you look at what exactly an endomorph, ectomorph, or mesomorph is, a mesomorph, for example, like most of the really influential Instagram influencers who look really good, who look very beautiful, and they seem like they know what they are talking about. If you look at them, the musculature of the upper parts of the spine, that is the thoracic spine and the cervical spine, that will be really dense, that will be really thick compared to the lumbar spine. This is the typical mesomorphic structure, which looks very attractive, very aesthetic also, because you have that very beautiful aesthetic triangular shape of the body, which is caused because of higher density muscle, like more dense muscles in the thoracic region and cervical region of the spine. If you look at an endomorph, the lumbar spine will have more dense muscles, whereas compared to the thoracic and cervical spine, that's why they will look like they have a lower center of gravity. Like in India, most of the South Indians have that kind of a structure. Okay, and then there is ectomorphic, where the musculature is even along the spine. There isn't any like more dense region in the spine. It's even. Such people will look very lean. They'll be very light also, high metabolism, but they will because the weight of the body is not getting distributed properly because of lack of muscles or whatever, so that they tend to have joint problem. The mesomorph, on the other hand, will tend to have inflammation related problems, and the endomorph will have metabolic syndrome related problems. So is the mesomorph the ideal? No. Is the endomorph or ectomorph ideal? No. Ideally the human body should be a combination of the three, so that we are able to avoid the problems that each body type has, while gaining the benefits of each of those three body types, right? And this, for example, let's say an endomorph is looking at, he wants to become fit, and he is looking at a fitness influencer who is a mesomorph, who has more dense muscle in the upper part of the spine. But now this mesomorph has that from childhood, and he will show his or her fitness techniques, his or her exercises, and this endomorph will think, he'll just copy those exercises, and he will be able to look as good as him or her, which is obviously basically he's being misled, because that is not, he's not going to look like that person even if he copies the other person's exercises. Why? Because he was not gifted with that musculature of the spine. Whereas tantra, when it isolates the muscles of the spine, you can literally improve the center of gravity. For example, you can actually raise the center of gravity by increasing the density of the thoracic and cervical spine through tantric practices, because you're literally isolating the muscles of the spine. Now what happens in other physical cultures, like for example, if an endomorph really wants to look like a mesomorph, he will actually have to work on his spine muscles first. He will have to increase the density of the thoracic and cervical spine, and then when he copies the exercises of the mesomorph, he will look like the mesomorph, but not before that. So even for most of the youngsters who don't have the right education and right knowledge about yoga and about why yoga is important, they will, when they understand this concept of the musculature of the spine, they understand this concept of what is the difference between a mesomorph, endomorph, ectomorph, and how they can actually use this system of yoga to actually change that structure, the spine structure.
What I understood from mesomorphs, ectomorphs, and endomorphs, if I'm not wrong, I understood that these all things are gifted through genetics. If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, like sometimes, sometimes it's genetics, sometimes it's physical activity also. Like if you notice, wrestlers tend to be endomorphic, or strongman trainers or people who work for strength, if you notice, they'll be a little bit endomorphic. Why? Because you need uh, more density in the lumbar region for lifting really heavy weights.
Hmm.
So a person who doesn't have enough muscles in the lumbar region, he may end up injuring uh, the back while lifting really heavy weights. They may look
All
like
right.
supermodels, but they will not be able to lift extremely heavy weights. So, like I said, you can't really say that one body type is the ideal, but you can definitely say that you can actually combine the good qualities of all the three different body types. And I guess that can happen only when you have gained a certain control over the development of the muscles of the spine, which happens when you are able to isolate the spine, which can be done through this system of yoga, this system of Tantra yoga.
Sanchit, how has your body changed over the years through doing yoga then?
So, what the feedback that I have received after I practiced
Mm.
yoga, and that too in yoga when I practiced Tantra yoga, the first thing that separates yoga from other physical cultures is longevity. Like yoga is still the best and the most efficient way to work towards longevity, and by that I mean aging gracefully. I guess
Sure.
I guess it's still yoga. There is nothing that beats yoga when it comes to looking young, feeling energetic throughout your life. And I look leaner. There's lean muscle mass. Earlier, the muscles, when I used to not practice these things, the
Mm.
muscles were a little puffy. Like you don't get that lean, pure lean muscle fiber, that lean structure. I don't know how to explain it. Like yoga definitely helps you gain lean muscle and plus flexibility and also energy.
Mm.
I feel more energetic after doing this.